welcome everybody to the Heroes of the Storm Tank tier list by 30k. I'm Cattle, and I'm going to be joined here today by Madara.
Yo, how's it going?
Going well. Let's get this done. Alright, I'm going to hop right into it before I get to say anything. And we're going to start with Anubarak. Anubarak, very solid pick right now. The game is very magic damage heavy currently, and that's his strength. His ult's super insane. He has a lot of CC and pretty hard to kill in most situations.
Yeah, agreed. He's got a lot of really good matchups right now into most of the range DPS, most of the tanks. He's really safe. He's got a really good escape with his E as well as engage. And as you said, his ult's insane with Cocoon.
Yeah, he's only a little bit squishy sometimes, so it's a little scary. I don't quite want to put him S, but very solid. Alright, moving on. Let's go to Arthas. We'll graciously put him in D tier for now. He just kind of sucks. Doesn't have good matchups, doesn't have good talents, doesn't have good ult. His Q doesn't really do all that much. So unless you're getting like insane value on his E, he's just kind of a dead pick right now.
Yeah, agreed. As a wise man once told me, a lot of the weaker heroes have some of their strengths, but with Arthas, it feels like all you get is weaknesses.
I absolutely agree with whoever said that, whoever he... Alright, let's move on to one of the best offlaners in the game, Blaze. But yeah, if you're that good in another role, usually you're not that good as main tank, and I definitely don't feel comfortable putting him higher than C. Like, still has the same kit as offlane, but it's just the positions that you're in. You just never really get to flank, and that kind of just doesn't let him play to his strengths. You lose like your wave clear power and your flanking power, and you just kind of try to go for charges, whiff, and then die.
Yeah, I'd say he's really tanky, but he's got a really unreliable engage, which is kind of bad as a main tank. Especially if you miss it and it's on that long of a cooldown, then you're a little bit useless in the fights. Just a lot better in the offlane role.
Yeah, like I could see you flexing him the main tank if another offlaner looks even better, but like usually Blaze is just the best anyways in offlane. But speaking of bad tanks, let's move on to Deathwing. And I know you're a Deathwing fan, you love him, but main tank, I'm willing to put him F.
Yeah, I mean, I'll level with you. He's horrible in the main tank role. I'd say he's okay at DPS, but if you're main tanking with him, you're not going to get anything done really. Don't pick him in that role.
Yeah, I feel like you need a miracle draft that you're playing against for main tank Deathwing to be playable. But yeah, the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We got Diablo here, and I think Diablo goes straight into S. He feels so good in the current meta. He's got good matchups against all the other good tanks, most of the good DPS, and it's just so hard to die on him.
Yeah, if the Diablo goes Spell Shield, feels really impossible to kill him. Especially with the full W build, he's just healing forever. Really insane hero.
Yeah, there's just not enough like good auto attackers right now. Even gray mains, I was like looking at stats recently, they were doing like almost half magic damage with like swipe and cocktail and stuff. Like, oh, it's just not that much. You just heal through it all. Can't burst him. Invincible.
Mm-hmm.
But you know who you can burst? That is ETC. He has seen much better days. He's just so squishy. It's so hard to engage on him, and I feel like whenever I'm playing him, all I really do is make my team miss damage with his knockback, which he like has to cast to not die. So I think ETC has to go into like D, maybe even F. But
I could definitely see the argument for F. I think honestly he's probably better offlane with stage dive. He just feels like he gets absolutely imploded from the main tank role.
yeah, it feels like you pretty much have to flank so you can do like the knockback into slide out. Because if you're sliding in, just explode. So yeah, I don't know. I played one game of him recently, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt like an F tier tank. It just felt like the game was lost because of me. So yeah, F you will stay. But Garrosh, on the other hand, I think Garrosh is actually pretty good. I think he's one of the hardest tanks to play, which is why I think a lot of people don't like picking him. But like his toss is insane, taunt is super strong, and ally toss is really good. But I think he's kind of suffers from bad matchups, so I think B is probably as high as he.
Yeah, I'd say he's one of the best CC tanks, but he's also got the most counters from the tank role, I'd say. Anything with vision or like a long range slow really messes up his day. On the other hand, though, as a Chromie player, it's the best tank to play with because if you're inting, then he can save you with the ally toss. That's something no other tank can do. And his CC setup chain is just insane with the throw into taunt or the throw into Q into taunt. He's just a lot of isolation for the enemy team to have to deal with.
Yeah, it definitely feels like when you pick him and he's good, he's like insane. It's just hard to force the pick because he's a little squishy or like vulnerable to being like whittled down at least. All right, let's move on to a similar pick to the Blaze. I think Curious is kind of the same. You're more of an offlaner or a follow-up tank, and you need to either like follow up off something or flank. Otherwise, main tank, it's a little hard, and you do kind of end up getting punished pretty heavily.
Yeah, I'd say this is another case where it's just not the right role for him. His main engage also leaves him very vulnerable. Just a lot better to be able to flank with him, or like you said, be the follow-up CC from like the off lane or a DPS slot. Just not the role for him, really.
Yeah, and it's just like a flex pick. Sometimes it can work, but you're better off picking.
Mm-hmm.
Like Johanna. I think Johanna is going to be my second S tier. I think she's just like, she's just super, super solid. She's not incredibly good at anything, but she's just like, she's good at everything, and you can pick her whenever in the draft. You're not going to get punished, and blinds are extremely valuable. Waveler's good, and she's got a pretty good ults.
Yeah, she's super unkillable with her trait and her insane health pool. Also insane teamfight damage with all of her E's and her spinning hammers. And also the best wave clear from a tank roll, which is really useful. Just a really solid tank that I feel like you can pick really early on in the draft if you have to.
Yeah, I'm never afraid of first picking a Johanna. It's just, you're not getting punished.
Mm-hmm.
All right, again, seems to be the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Malganus kind of sucks. I think he's with Arthas in D tier, where you really need that miracle draft where you're playing against 4 good matchups, or like 5 good matchups, just no CC whatsoever, then he can pop off, but otherwise, it's a struggle.
Yeah, agreed. If the enemy team has no stuns, then he's S tier, but if they have like 1 or 2 stuns, every single one of your casts is just going to get interrupted, and you're going to feel really bad.
Yeah, definitely. It's so hard to find that 1 out of 100 games where he's good, but every once in a while, it looks like a Malganus. But you know, it's rare, especially if people are picking good offlane.
Yeah.
All right, next, move on to one of my favorites lately, May. That's an obvious S tier. Just kidding. More of like a C tier. She's good, but she struggles a lot. She has a lot of bad matchups, and her CC is unreliable. She's more of like a combo tank. I've liked running like May Maiev because then you can tether them into the pull or into the stun, and it's pretty good. But on her own, she kind of struggles, and she takes a lot of damage and kind of dies.
Yeah, she's really unkillable, super, super tanky. Both her ults are really good combo setups. But other than like her really long cooldown and hard to hit CC, she doesn't do much in the team fights. She kind of just waddles around, throwing a snowball every once in a while. So she's really unkillable, but doesn't do too much with that unkillableness.
Yeah, I feel like every game I play now, I just kind of run around for 20 levels, and then I hit one good snowball right at the end, win the game, and then I did my job. But other than that, she's not that good.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, Muradin, on the other hand, feels very solid. I don't think he's quite S tier because sometimes it just doesn't feel like you're doing that much compared to, I think, Joe and Diablo, but I think he's a solid A tier, very easy to pick to get away with, doesn't really need much healing, and has a ton of CC.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of his abilities are actually really similar to Noob, so it makes sense for them to be together. He feels really independent. He's got his own self-sustain, his own escapes. His ult's really good for survivability. That level 13 Bronzebeard Rage is just insane. Probably one of the best tank talents in the game. You do so much damage and so much self-sustain. Really solid tank. The other thing that really sets him apart from the S tiers is while he's almost unkillable, they're actually unkillable.
Yeah, also, you have to actually like your CC. I feel like
Oh yeah, true.
is just so easy. And Muradin sometimes you obviously I don't miss, but sometimes it happens. All right, next we'll go with Stitches. I think Stitches is kind of similar to the Garrosh tier. He's got his moments, but kind of hard to draft him. Gets punished pretty hard by good early game comps, and like just with how common it is nowadays to draft tanks early, hard to find those games where he actually shines.
He's really, really good late game tank if all your buildings are up, but really weak early game, so you can kind of get ran down and snowballed on. But if you can make it to the late game with a couple forts still up and get some nice gorge picks, then he can be a really impactful hero. Just a little bit harder to play, like Cattle said.
If you get to that late game, he's insane, but sometimes like game's over before you're 20 your Stitches.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we'll go to Tyriel. I know a lot of people love Tyriel. I think some people would put him A, but to me, he's more of a B. He's just kind of an enabler that doesn't quite have that much pressure on his own or even with other heroes. Just not having any CC makes him hard to get that much impact off of, and it feels like you need like those really long, grindy games to really win with him.
Yeah, he feels more like another support from the tank role. Personally, I think he's best when played with a hyper carry that you can just buff with your W and E. But other than that, no CC from the tank position kind of sucks. His ult Sank is really impactful, but other than that, he's not doing too much more. So I kind of agree with B tier.
I think you mean his old Judgment, but yeah, I agree. I agree with. All right, Uther. Honestly, Uther, he's one of those. He's one of those secret S tiers, but realistically, kind of more of a B tier. It's just like if you find the right Uther game, it's insane, but also very risky because it's just hard to not instantly die. Just D-shield on yourself, and yeah, you really need the right situation.
Yeah, I'd say he's a harder hero to play. I think if we saw a lot more double support running around right now, we'd be putting him in S tier, but we don't. So more of a B tier pick right now. I think he's really, really good if you got a hyper carry, kind of like Tyriel. You can cleanse them, D-shield them, heal them a bunch. But we're not seeing too much of that kind of play right now, so I agree he's a little bit lower on the list. Still pretty good though.
Very luckily, we're not seeing too much double support because no one needs that in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And let's round it out with Varian. I'm definitely an Varian one trick, but currently he does not feel good. I'm gonna put him in, I think, C tier. Got those situations where he's okay, but how like burst heavy current meta is and how strong offlaners are, most of the time it feels like when you get that Varian pick, it's not just a Varian getting a pick on enemy team, he also gets a pick on himself, and like one for ones, or even worse, you don't get the pick and you die. Feels like he needs so much help, and you don't really want a liability pick as a tank. You want like a self-sufficient engage machine, and that's that.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of his struggles come from the meta DPS right now. All of them are really good matchups, like into the Varian, so he has a really rough time. Personally, when I'm playing DPS and I see a Varian picked, it just feels like a free win. A lot of them can just run circles around him and make his life hell. So it feels really hard to play Varian into those characters like Lunara or Chromie.
Yeah, those are just a nightmare for him. It's hard to really have a good game on him, but I think he's pickable.
Yeah.
And I think overall, I think this is what I'm gonna settle on. This is mostly more for like competitive play. I think if you're playing Storm League, you can get away with all the way to C tier probably, and you'll be okay. You can do well. D and F. I think you really still need a good game for Arthas and Malganus to get those wins. The other two that shall not be named, I just wouldn't pick them. Just don't do it. Pick them in the offlane or something if you really want to play.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but I think that about wraps it up. Hope everyone enjoyed it, and feel free to reach out anywhere if you got any questions or you want to flame my rankings, builds, or anything. But other than that, I hope everyone enjoyed, and you're 30k on in the finals. And
Let's go.